In taking a course on genocide and human rights, the final project asked students to create an advocacy project that would educate the community about the Syrian refugee crisis. I chose to create a poster campaign that I then made copies of and distributed it around my school campus, and also had a question and answer forum with students and faculty to answer any questions they might have about the Syrian refugee crisis and how they could get involved. So this is a copy of the Syrian refugee crisis poster that I created. As you can see, it starts with a what is happening. In the early 2011s, peaceful protest against the torture of students for anti-government graffiti was met by open fire instigated by the government 3 days later in Syria. The protesters initially wanted democracy and greater freedom, but then demanded the resignation of President Bashar al-Assad. This soon escalated into an all-out civil war in the country, with numerous divisions of rebel groups against the president. Currently, Syrian refugee victims are facing attacks on certain civilians and the use of explosive weapons. They are being tortured, detained, and enforced. Disappearances are happening all over the country. There's also extreme poor humanitarian conditions and access to services, and they're being displaced from their home and need aid. One of the questions I asked myself is this a genocide? The answer is maybe. Syria is ruled by a minority sect, Assad supporters. There are systematic human rights violations and an intentional targeting of particular groups, both Sunni Muslims and army defectors. Similar genocides that may sound familiar are the Armenian genocide and the Darfur genocide. Right now, the response to the refugee crisis is at an international stage. As you can see in this graphic, the Syrian refugee crisis is affecting large parts of the rest of the world. Currently, Turkey, the country next to Syria, is taking in over 1.9 million Syrian refugees. Lebanon is a close second, then Jordan, Iraq, and Egypt. Over here, I've indicated other countries where there's 5% or less, in Germany, Canada, Brazil, and so forth. You'll also find some information here on what Indonesia has done in response to the Syrian refugee crisis. So what can we do? Well, we can raise money using an app called Charity Miles. So whenever you walk, run, or bike, you can feed the Syrian victims. You can educate people, learning more about the Syrian crisis and current events by following news and raising awareness in your community. You can donate through the Syrian crisis victims who are in dire need of financial aid or research. And finally, you can share this poster, what you know and have found, and circulate around the knowledge that is presented here in order for us to instigate change. There are lots of other options as well, as you'll find throughout this project.